Christ was dead for 3 days. What was Christ or God the Father doing for these 3 days? Good question. I don't want to answer that in a chronological fashion. I'm not, I can tell you like for 24, 48, or 72 hours, what he was doing like if he was wearing a watch, all right? I can tell you what he did, though, in an event kind of answer. When Jesus Christ said, "It is finished," the Bible seems to say, and I say seems to say because there's varying opinions, but 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 18 through 20, Ephesians 4, 8 through 10, they seem to say that Jesus Christ went to the place of the dead, known in the Old Testament as Sheol or Hades. And in the Old Testament, it seemed to have two compartments. One where Old Testament saints resided, but were still under the demands or the requirements of the law. And then there was this gulf. We might call that Abraham's bosom, or, believe it or not, paradise. And then there was the place of the lost. It seems from those chapters that Jesus Christ went and freed those Old Testament saints, pre-cross saints, from their captivity to the law and led them to heaven, to the throne of God. He did not go to hell to pay a price. What did Jesus say on the cross? He said, "It is finished." So when he voluntarily gave up his spirit into the hands of the Father, the price was paid. And by the way, Jesus didn't pay the price to Satan. Jesus Christ satisfied the wrath of God against the children of disobedience. It was the Father's wrath that God satisfied. He sacrificed his life as our high priest. God accepted it, tore the veil in two, completed redemption's plan. And I think then Christ goes to while his body's in the tomb, his spirit goes into the place of the dead and he preaches freedom. Now Colossians chapter 2 kind of says this. This is kind of a neat way he says it. He says that when he went there, he led those Old Testament saints to the throne of God, to heaven, so to speak, God's presence. But in the same time, while he did that, he's triumphing over the enemies of the cross. And in the Old Testament scenario, often the victorious king would march out of the city he conquered with the head of the defeated king on a pole, and it would be a mocking type of way to say, "I won, you didn't." Now, I don't want to make Christ out to be a mocking king. But the point of that analogy is when he went to the place of the dead and said, "I've paid the price. Those of you who have believed, the law no longer can hold you by its demands." Those who had chosen not to believe, those who were lost, saw what Christ did and realized he was the victor. Does that make sense? So if you're asking what he did in those 3 days, I don't know that for every minute of those days he's there. But the event that took place was he preached freedom to those who had believed, released them from the law of demands, and led them to God. Ephesians 4 lays this out. So there are some varying opinions. You might have a little different take on that. Please feel free to just have some scriptures to back up what you believe. Amen? And if it varies, go for it. As long as the Bible is in your corner. And I've given you some scriptures that would kind of back up what I believe is what happened during the time of his entombment, we'll call it.